Hey there, this is Michael with ServiceNow, and I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about a new app that I've been working on. Actually, I've been working on for probably several months at this point, and I finally have gotten some time to getting to the point where I can start to release version 1.0 on this. The app is called TriviaNow, and since I'm a big trivia fan and I also love to interact with people, I decided to make an app that could be built in such a way that people either in meetings, user groups, or even on the go have an opportunity to not only play trivia games but also can play trivia games together on the ServiceNow platform. So to begin with, on ServiceNow itself, in this app trivia game as I call it, I built it in such a way to be very modular. So before you even set up any type of game, the first part of that is creating a game template. So in this case, I've got a couple of templates, one of which is going around a Jakarta trivia for some of the user group meetings that I've been taking part in, but also some Star Wars trivia as well. Since I'm a huge Star Wars fan, there's no way I'm going to get around it. Every template itself has certain settings to it. They have the question time limit, so exactly how much time do you want to give your contestants or participants time to answer those questions, as well as a certain amount of time before the full amount of points that can be given starts to diminish over time. So I wanted to do it in such a way that even if everyone answers correctly, more points will be awarded to those that answer first versus people taking a little bit of extra time to go ahead and answer those questions. If you put this as 0 for the countdown, then it's just going to be full points no matter when anybody answers. Keeping that pretty simple. But I built it in such a way so that way each game template itself can have a series of questions, and as you would expect, each question itself would have certain options that would be able to be shown. So for example, who shot first? In this Han Solo question, I gave 3 options, as you can see there. There's also different orders, and then there's also selecting which option is that question, pardon me, which that answer would be the one that's correct. With each question we also have the capability of putting certain points value as well. So in this template, I can see my different questions. I can also see the different points that each one is worth. And also, I built it in such a way that once you go through and start to create more and more questions in your environment, you can go through and create multiple templates and reuse those questions. And so you're never put in such a position where you're using questions, creating questions, putting them to a template, and then it's thrown away. The more questions you create with these templates, the more you have available. And now I've got all these various questions. As you can see, some of these are related to ServiceNow Jakarta, related from a previous template, but also those questions that I had from my Star Wars trivia game. One thing you'll notice though is even if you add a question to a template, the point itself will start back at, I think, 100 as the default. So you can go through and create templates themselves that, yes, they may be reusing those questions, but for each of the template, those questions may have different point values as well. So that way you could essentially have different versions of these game templates with different points themselves around them. Once there's the matter of being able to set up your templates, the next part about this goes to, hey, let's go ahead and kick off a game. Now, I went ahead and built this particular mechanism itself to have a few options. One of those options is to go through and schedule a game. So you'll notice that there's a draft state, and then there's various states themselves in terms of how it runs through a particular game. But the simplest component of this is simply just putting in a name of a particular game and then using one of those templates that you've already created. If I want to start this in the future, I can schedule it. So you've got the capability to really go through and schedule multiple games. You can do it multiple games throughout a single day. You can do it at one time. However, it will work for you in terms of what makes sense, as well as being able to set up drafts. So once you have a draft of a particular game, it's not going to show up as playable. However, you've got the option to then go through and schedule it at a later time. The last part about TriviaNow itself from a game master type of standpoint is just some properties we have around here. And so of course we have our properties section where we can go through and put in information in terms of what we're looking to do. In this case, you've got the ability to pause a certain amount of time before starting a game. Now, this is a application setting. It's not per game. So you have to keep in mind that when you change this, every game that launches is going to be using a different value. So you may have 11, 30, may have a couple minutes. And the reason for the pause itself is to give players time to actually get in and go through and log in and put their name in and have the option to get into the game. But you also have a certain amount of time between each questions to show scores. So showing the scores is that time where it's showing a leaderboard in terms of how many people are going through and have answered and what the points are in the current rankings. You'll also see a few other options that takes advantage of ServiceNow Notify. When I built this, believe it or not, I started off with using ServiceNow Notify as the option for people to put in their responses to essentially text in 1, 2, or 3 for the answer. It was something that I had shown at this past Knowledge 17 conference. It worked decently well. So there's a few options around there in terms of what SMS goes back if there's no active game, what SMS is going to be shown as instructions, as well as one other component that I had as part of our knowledge conference was the ability to show slides in between each questions as well, kind of like advertisement. So there's some properties related to that. What you'll notice though is when you look at scheduling a game, none of those options are there. I removed them for the time being, mainly because I had a very specific purpose. However, I did want to try to keep all the code and everything together. So in this case, I wanted to up the amount of time that I had in between each game right here. And maybe I'll kick this off for 20 seconds of waiting before starting a game. So now that I have everything set up in terms of my game properties of how I'm going to run TriviaNow, as well as going through and setting up a game, now it's a matter of going ahead and kicking off games. So since this is a draft, nothing has happening. Like I said, I can go ahead and set it for a later date, at which point it will kick off the workflow, and then when that date time approaches, it will go ahead and move into an active game. In this case, I'm just going to move this over as scheduled, and then it doesn't matter if the date and time is in the past or if the date and time is empty. Essentially, when it kicks off, it will check to see when the game should start. And if it's in the past or it's empty, it will just continue with the workflow and continue on. Now, once I go ahead and kick off this game, I have two additional components. So I have a portal called TriviaNow. So you have your name of your instance / TriviaNow, and that's essentially a portal for the game master to be able to show this as a type of projected game that may be on a screen for people to follow along. So you can say that I have so as you can see, I have an active game, my Star Wars games. I have a past game, but in this case, I can go ahead and kick this off, and this is where you start to see the workflow. For example, it's showing and getting ready for the next question. Now, while this runs through here, the other option we have is as a player. And so far, what I've liked to have is the ability for people to use an app. So while I have TriviaNow as kind of that game master component, I now have another portal called AnswerNow as my game playing component. And so I always like to use QR codes to make it easier in order to get into games. And the AnswerNow portal itself is designed to be a mobile app where I can put in my particular name. So maybe I put in Anakin. Here, I'm a Star Wars fan, like I said. And now what happens is it takes me back to my game lists. I can go right into an active game. It doesn't matter if a particular game is already playing or if it's scheduled, so I can jump into it at any time. And the other thing to keep in mind is this Answer Now component is public. So I put my name in, let's see, I think that's Django Fett. I put my name in, and I've got the option to go ahead and join any public game. Good, I earned points, 133. If you notice, the mobile component here shows me the points I earned. However, the TriviaNow piece or that Game Master piece is simply just showing the answer. So it is a bit different in terms of which one you use. If you're just using the Answer Now component for the players, all they're going to do is have that option to go ahead and put in the answers, and then they'll see the answer itself on the public screen, so to speak. But now as the game runs through, I've got that ability to put in those questions. Like I said before, this is public, and it's built in such a way that if I put in a name and I use the same name over and over again, then what ends up happening is it finds that same same name that I've used and kind of continues my trend. Yes, I could run into an issue of people using the same name. In that case, what ends up happening is there would be a conflict. But however, I did want to give the option where people could come back and play over and over again and ultimately see how many games they've played in the past. As you can see right here, the portal that I have is fairly simple. I'm not really using much in terms of the features and functionality, mainly because I wanted to get something out there. But overall, it's a pretty flexible system. I've already used at least one user game, at one ServiceNow user group. It was able to show past games where I can go ahead and see the points for everybody. And so that makes it very, very fun, interactive way to create several different trivia games, schedule them up, and then you can use them at, for example, the Knowledge Conference, user group meetings, whatever you'd want to. It's all built on Service Portal, so these pages are all responsive. They're designed to be used on mobile, and like I said before, because the Answer Now portal is public, you can keep it very easy in terms of being able to open it up for as many people as you want. I know that at least for a good 20, 30 people, this plays with no problem. So that's all I have at this point. You'll be able to find this on Share shortly once I make a few additional changes and updates, but I'll post this and then you can download it and take it and make it yours and improve upon it as you will. So thank you very much for your time. Like I said, this is Michael over at ServiceNow. If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter at Slobodnik. Good luck spelling that out. But thank you very much, and I will talk to you later.